So because of the announcement of the Shadow Spear box, which looks like it's going to carry another line of Possessed Marines in it, what I thought would be worthwhile would be to paint up the original set of Possessed, just to have them ready for when the new system comes out. So what I have here are the original Possessed. I've swapped a couple of the heads to make them a bit more demon-like from the ones that were there originally, but for the most part this is the original set. And as you can see, they've got demon heads and wings and different paraphernalia there. So we're going to make ourselves a set of Possessed Chaos Space Marines. So because they're Black Legion, we've originally primed them with black, which makes it a little bit easier. So our first step to do then after that is to start bringing out the Demonesque type parts. So we're going to do the wings, any of the growths, the claws, and things like that. We're going to do them all with a base layer of Rakarth flesh. And all we're going to do is start putting on our base layer. Very watered down, so it flows very easily. And it may take a couple of thin coats to get the coverage that we want, but because it is a base paint, it should cover quite nicely. So now we're finished our layer of Rakarth flesh, and all we did was the demon parts. What we're going to do now is a wash of Reikland Flesh Shade. So I'm going to put that over everything we just painted. Gives a very red look. To highlight all the details that we want. So we took the time to do everything bone as well with the Rakarth flesh, but we're going to do that over with a different shade wash, so we'll get a different effect there. So now that the Reikland Flesh Shade is finished, what we're going to do is those bone sections that we mentioned earlier, and they are going to get a shade of Agrax Earth Shade. So we're going to take some of the Earth Shade, I'll go over, say, these horns here, and we'll work our way through the whole list, but these ones are going to go brown, which is a contrast to the very more pink shaded. While we were waiting for that to dry, what we also ended up doing was taking a little bit of Zandri dust and covering over the skull mask here, as well as any skulls that are lying on any of the backpacks. So now all we're going to do is take a little bit of Agrax Earth Shade there, and we're going to shade in those skulls as well. Now there are a few places on here, on each of these models, that have some raw tissue. So one of the examples is right here, where you can see there's some raw meat tissues there, as well as along the legs here, and this chunk that's missing right here are the shin guard, as well as some of the tissues in and around the chest piece here. So we're going to do all of those in Mephiston Red, just to really bring those out as well. So we'll do that now. Now that we've got our Mephiston Red sorted out, what we're going to do is add a little bit of shade of Carlsberg Crimson to both the red as well as the ends of the demon processes. So we're just going to put a lot of that really good red crimson color in there, because this is tissue. as well as some redness out toward the end. So now that we're finished that, what we're going to take is a little bit of Ushabti de Baume, and we're going to do a very, very dry brush over everything that was bone color, and effectively everything that was washed with Earthshade. These ribcage, these spines, skull mask. So with white bone finished, what we're going to do now is take a little layer, a very dry brush of Pink Horror, and go over all of the tissue. That we did with Mephiston Red. All right. So that takes care of all the raw tissue. So now what we're going to want to do is a dry brush of, what we're going to do is we're going to take this Kesla flesh and we're going to dry brush all the demon parts to give us a very light highlight. And finally we'll get the trim a little bit brighter. Like so. So it's coming along. We're going to do the same for the others. So after taking care of those highlight layers, what we're going to do is clean up the models a little bit. And all we're going to use for that is some Abaddon Black mixed with a little bit of Glossy Medium. And that's just to clean up the splatter and stuff that's been on the power armor, so we can get ready to paint that. Like so. So we're slowly getting ready to start doing our trims. We'll do the rest of the models and we'll meet back again. So after we've done our layer of Abaddon Black, what we're going to do now is just a dry brush of Eshin Gray right over the top of that, just to highlight some of the little details that are there. But make sure it's a very, 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 very dry brush, because you don't want to make them look not as much like Black Legion. So just a highlight layer, just like that, making sure to get the backpacks, the back of the legs, things like that as well. going to do that for all the other models. Once we're finished our dry brush of Hessian Gray, we're going to start with our Chrome Highlight Gold highlight trim, and it'll be with Balthasar Gold. And I've already started it here a little bit, as you can see. And we're just putting a trim on all of the armor, very similar to the rest of Chaos Marines generally look. There's lots of gold trim all around. So once we've finished our Balthasar Gold, this is what we've got for a completed piece so far. So what we're going to do now is do the metal parts on the backpack and those pieces here. And we're going to do that with Lead Belcher. So we'll just touch those pieces off and we'll come back on the stream in a few minutes. So we finished both base metal colors, and we just finished up with our Lead Belcher, which got the metal over here, as well as some of these other spots. We did all of the metallic weapons. And before we move on to shading some of the metallics, one of the models has an actual hose coming off of it right here. So what we're going to do with that is we're going to coat it with Screamer Pink, and then there is some fine detail in it where the sheathing of the wiring is exposed, and so we're going to do that with Lead Belcher as well, and then we'll meet back here. So that's all done now, and you can see where the metallic sticks out of the sheath of the wiring, which is just Screamer Pink and Lead Belcher. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a shade of Nuln Oil, and we're going to go over all of the metallics that we've done, and that's just to sort of make the details show up. Same as we do whenever we use this. Both sides of it. So now that the Nuln Oil is finished, we're going to go over all the brass details, and we're going to do that with Agrax Earthshade. So much the same way as we did the Nuln Oil, you're just going to put it directly on, and that's going to bring out the details. On all this brass, which we can then relighten up in a little bit. Now that our Agrax Earthshade is done, and all of our washes have dried, we're going to take a layer of Runelord Brass and just start bringing color back out on some of these models. All the brass points, we're going to highlight them and light them back up. And what we're looking is, because it's a highlight, looking for just the raised spots. You see that gets a lot more shiny. Look at the back of this glove here. So that really brings out more of the metallic. We do that inside ankle. And you just have to touch it. We missed the belt as well. So like that. So as you can see, that one shines quite a bit more in the light. And we're going to do the same thing with the other four. And then we'll move on from there with our Rune Lord Brass. So now that we've finished with the Rune Lord Brass, bringing out the brightness of the Balthasar Gold, what we're going to do now is take our lead belcher that we had originally, that we've done with Nuln Oil, and we're going to apply some Iron Breaker. And what that's going to do is brighten up the metal. As you can see here on the sword, it's going to bring that shine back on. We don't want the whole thing, but we do want a little bit of it, especially on the top half. And as you can see, that's got nice and shiny. Now with the respirators as well, we're going to go a very, very thin layer, just to brighten them all back up without overwhelming it and wiping out the Nuln Oil in the crevices we put there for the detail. It's a very light brush over. Just like so. In the back we have the power cables, which should be pretty much the same thing. Very, very light brushing. So now that we've finished our Iron Breaker, we have all of the weapons nice and shined up. What we want to do is deal with this particular model and his flame. He's got a flaming sword. So in order to get the flames right, what we need to do is start with a base of white. So what we're going to do is put just a coat of ceramite white base all over that sword if we can. We'll use it quite watered down, that way we get good coverage. And it'll probably take 2 coats to cover the black that was there originally. So while we're waiting for that ceramite white base to finish drying completely, we're going to take on the horns. And what I've got is a very, very, very watered down Rhinox hide. And it is really, really watered down. And we're just going to put some toward the top of each of these horns. For 2 main reasons. 1, I like how it looks. And 2, while you're playing, if the tips of these get hit and get chipped, you won't notice the underlying black and gray as much if it's over brown. I'm just taking water right directly out of the pot to really water down that. I'm going to come through it a little bit with a second layer. Now we put it on the horns on some of the big guys here. that dries, it's almost like a wash at this point. We'll probably do the last one over here as well. So now that we've got most of that finished, we're going to start working on the eyes. So we're going to use Stormhost Silver and a very fine detail brush. The color in the two eyes. Like so. And now that we've done the Stormhost Silver for eyes, what we're going to do is light them up. Now we have a few choices. We have Waystone Green. We could also use Spirit Stone Red. Any of these technical paints that we use for jewels will make a very great glowing eye. So all we do is take a little bit and then very carefully go over the eye visors like that, and you have a nice glowing eye. Look at the skeleton one earlier here. We're going to give it a second coat just to make it even brighter. Like so. And we'll do that to the rest of them. And then we'll come back and deal with the flaming sword. So now, for the flaming sword, what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this Cassandra yellow shade, and we're just going to completely cover everything that we painted with the ceramite white, staining it into flames, like that. Same thing on the other side. Letting it collect into the little pockets. Like that there. So while waiting for the Cassandra yellow to dry, we ended up basing them. So just a little bit of glue and then a little bit of sand, and now they're all based. So going back to our flame, what we're going to do now is take just a little bit of Troll Slayer Orange, water down quite a bit, and we're just going to color the flames on the top here. Just like so. Same thing with the second side. Almost like a dry brush, leaving some of the yellow down below. Like that. And then what we'll do is we're going to take a layer of Wild Rider Red and put it up and over the top of that still. Give the other side as well. And then what we're going to do is take a little bit of that white scar, or you could use the ceramite white. And we're going to do a little bit just on the bottom of the sword, just giving a downward streak. And same thing on the other side. To tie it all in together. We're going to do a dry brush of Uriel Yellow over the whole thing. And then we have some flaming sword. Now all we have to do is clear coat the models, and we should be finished. These are the finished possessed units, and as you can see, they turned out quite nice. Hopefully yours turned out as well, and you can use this as a guide when the Greater Possessed comes out with the Shadowspear box. If you liked this video and if you found it helpful, please feel free to leave a comment, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. Thank you very much for watching, staying on board for this long, and we will see you the next time when we paint up another unit.